Please be seated. I'd like to take a moment. I'm sure some of you, but maybe not all of you, are familiar with making the sign of the cross over oneself, forehead to chest, left shoulder to right shoulder. Well, let's go into a moment of prayer together. I invite you to shift as you need to. Perhaps plant your feet on the ground. Maybe take a deep breath. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. And bring your awareness to God's presence with you. Whatever it feels like or looks like to open your heart to God. And with a deep breath, I invite you to make that sign of the cross. Forehead to chest, left shoulder to right shoulder. And let your hand rest. And notice how that felt. If there's any resonance with your awareness of God's presence, a deeper attunement or a sharper focus. Let's try it one more time. With a deep breath, make that sign of the cross. Continued awareness and gratitude for God's love with us. Amen. Now the question is, of course, did you make the sign of the cross and stop at the right shoulder, come back to the chest? People do it all different ways. This gospel passage is interesting. Jesus tells us, "Many will come to you in my name and say, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray." Jesus warns of a future where people are going to argue and struggle over who he is. Yet he calls these moments birth pangs. When I read this passage, I bring it into my inner life of faith. I think of how often we try to claim God for ourselves, putting faith into a box. Jesus' warning echoes teachings from other traditions, like Buddhist peacemaker Thich Nhat Hanh's insight. He says, "When you found the Buddha, kill the Buddha." Whenever we think we have found ultimate truth, we have to let even that go so we can continue growing. Faith is not about certainty and possession, but about climbing an ever-unfolding ladder. If we think we've got Jesus, we probably stop climbing that ladder. If anyone, even me, tries to hand you a Jesus-shaped box with a pretty bow on it, smash it. Jesus cannot be contained or possessed, and it is our work as disciples to keep breaking down old certainties or other people's certainties in order to allow for new understanding as our lives and faith unfold. Celtic spiritual teacher John Philip Newell writes, "The work of interchange, dying at a certain level in order to live at another, is essential." He asks, what do we need to let go of to prepare the way for new birthings? Celtic spirituality reminds us that every moment can be an entry point for the divine. However, when we say, "This is God," or "I've got Jesus," we might be limiting our capacity to see God's light outside of those things. In our Episcopal tradition, we really honor this discernment, the birthing process, engaging each person to present to be present to their constant emergence of faith, and connect with God in ways that are meaningful to each one of us. A few years ago, I was meeting with a newcomer to the Episcopal Church. They'd grown up in the Catholic tradition, knew some similar language, but it was still very new. And they were anxious about getting things right. So they started off asking about making the sign of the cross, or bowing. Do I bow at the cross? When do I make the sign of the cross? And I replied, these are great questions. It's up to you. These are moments when you can make a gesture or not that helps you attune to God. It's all about what helps you connect with God and the community. Okay, so then they asked another question. What about during the confession and the prayers of the people? Do I stand? Do I kneel? Great question. It's up to you. If kneeling helps you feel reverent, kneel. If standing helps you feel more open, stand. It's literally written in the Book of Common Prayer, stand or kneel. Okay, I have another question. What about communion? I'm baptized, they said, but not confirmed in the Episcopal Church. What do I do? This is a great question, very important. It's up to you. In the Episcopal Church, we welcome all baptized Christians, and mostly really anybody who believes drawn to connect with God in the Eucharist. Please come participate in communion. If you would prefer to wait, take your time. I'm always happy to offer a blessing. Okay, so they have another question. What does it mean to be a member? And I laughed, and by this time they knew the answer. It's up to you. Yeah. If you want to claim this parish as your spiritual home, I am so glad and I'm honored to journey with you in your spiritual path. There's a few things that people do to honor that membership. They might participate in ministries. They might pledge as part of stewardship. They might be in the directory. But really, it's up to you. Membership is about your experience of connecting with God and this community and being an active participant in parish life, whatever that looks like. Right now, we are in our stewardship campaign, and what do we say about how much to give? It's up to you. That's right. We know that participation is never one size fits all. Giving any amount can be a joyful contribution that represents dedication to a life of faith. I give because I have a sense of wanting to deepen my practice and practice my faith more diligently. This fall, pledging to St. Matthew's for me reflects my gratitude for a parish that is willing to ask deep questions and do deep work. I really think we need places like St. Matthew's in the world. And at the same time, I started a new job and bought a house. So we're giving when we can. Whether it's giving $5 or $500, it can shape your relationship with faith and community in new ways. Are you open to how God might show up through that act? Faith is dynamic. It's not static. I hope your faith has changed a lot since you were 5 years old. So try continuing. Shake up your practice. If you usually kneel, try standing. If you usually bow, maybe don't. If you've never made the sign of your cross and stopped in the center, maybe try that. even these small differences can draw us into new ways of embodying and seeing God's light around us. Smash the box of "this is my faith." Discover what feels meaningful now. Everything is an entry point for God. In our Episcopal life, we affirm that God shows up differently to each of us at different times in our lives. And we prioritize community, not dogma. Being together on a journey of faith acknowledges that each of our journeys is dynamic and may never look like someone else's. But we believe that the diversity of experiences helps us all to see God more profoundly. I was so moved last week, Harper sharing her experience of knowing God in this community. I'm assuming that's probably very different than how all of you have known God in this community. This is not a wishy-washy response to faith. This is a significantly engaged faith that doesn't take anything for granted. And it encourages wrestling rather than memorizing. So when we do this work of inner renewal, letting go of old certainties or what other people have told us, we open the way for rebirth, not just individually, but as a church. Rebirthing is needed in the church today. What old visions do we need to release in order to make space for new life? St. Matthew's as a church has already begun this important work. You discerned the need for a rector who would journey with you, not hand you a prepackaged box. Church. And I am so excited and grateful to keep asking, who is St. Matthew's Parker? The response, of course, it's up to you.